So the problem of being and becoming is also the problem of what is and what should be. And science, it seems to me, concentrates primarily on a subset of what is, because it's concerned with the structure of the world as it presents itself, but not to subjectivity precisely, but to the collective mind. And so the rule with science is, well, if more than one person can detect it at the same time, then it might actually be real, or at least it's real scientifically. And that's a pretty useful tool, and I think it's partly useful because it helps us differentiate our knowledge in a way that makes it more and more practically useful. We need to know the difference between what we can both experience and what only you can experience and what only I can experience. And by continually clarifying that, what's happened is we've built a much better and much more delineated understanding of the ground of our shared experience, and that's also allowed us to develop all sorts of tools and technologies that we've also chosen in most cases to put to work increasing our general quality of life and well-being. So the science end of things has worked pretty well. It's become hyper-developed over the last 500 years, and that's a good thing, but it's left some things in the lurch, I believe. And when we talked about Nietzsche and his idea of the death of God, we talked about one of the consequences of the rise of science as knowledge. And because science can say that the reality it deals with is the reality of shared experience, but it also tends to go farther than that, and to say that there is no other reality but what shared experience presents to us. And that's where things get troublesome. Because first of all, from a subjective perspective, that just doesn't seem to be true. I mean, it isn't obvious how you can understand the relationship between the fact that you have your subjective experience and the fact of the objective world. We don't know how to put those two things together, and merely ignoring the subjective, well, that causes problems, because of course that's what you're primarily stuck with, and it's the primary problem. How do you deal with your isolated individual existence, and what do you make of it? And science, in some senses, it can't answer those questions, but that shouldn't necessarily lead us to the conclusion that such questions shouldn't be posed, or that they don't have to be answered. They do have to be answered, because they're still part of the domain of problems that beset human beings.